Hello, and welcome to another Manopause podcast. Today, our special guest was turned down 144 times trying to get his book published. He kept going when others told him, it's never going to work. It wasn't a good idea. Today, with almost 500 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books sold, Mark is glad he held fast to the principles of perseverance, excellence, and belief in oneself that have allowed him to create an extraordinary achievement in his life. As one of the world's most respected thought leaders, he's known globally as the ambassador of possibility. Welcome, Mark Victor Hansen. We're really excited to have you, and we have a lot of questions, so welcome.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you both for having me.
It's great. It's great. So, Mark, we've talked a little bit, and we started reading some of your books. And like I told you before, I have several books on my shelf of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Yes. Oh my God. Great. And you're like hold world records for books sold, right?
Yeah, no one sold more than me in nonfiction. According to Guinness Book of Records, 500 million books, 59 times number one, and more. I've written 318 mostly best-selling titles. So the trouble with bestseller is an interesting thing. Like, I'm number one with our One-Minute Millionaire right this minute in Vietnam, but you guys would never hear that One-Minute Millionaire is number one in Vietnam, because I'm trying to keep communism out of Vietnam and out of Singapore and places like that.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. What do you do in your spare time, by the way?
I write.
That's great.
Actually, and answer your question, my wife and I are phenomenal hikers. We live here in Scottsdale. We live at the top of McDowell Mountain, and we got 100 hills to climb right here, and it's spectacular. But we exercise, we ski, we vacation. We have 6 grandkids that we love, appreciate, and adore.
So you and Jack Canfield were basically the force behind this book, and I read a little blurb in the book about how Jack had come up with like 75 of these great stories that people told him he should write, and then you kind of brought up the idea of 101 because it has sort of a mystical power to that number. And basically you wrote the additional 26 stories. And then as Mike said, you kind of hit the wall. Everybody's like, not our bowl of soup. And so, yeah, and yet you guys kept pushing at it. And that, I think, is something we want to dive into, because so many people, and it doesn't matter what it is. It might just be a job that you want, or a relationship that you want, or whatever it might be, is the idea of hitting the wall and stopping. You didn't do that. You hit the wall, you hit it again, you hit it again, you kept hitting it like Jericho, and eventually it all fell down, right?
And
so how did that happen?
Guru. You are the marketing guru of the duo. I know that. I can tell, right? So tell us about that.
That's true. And then I want to go back and just edit one thing Larry said. It's all correct that we came together. We talked to 6,000 people each down at Mandala Health Conference in San Diego long ago. We met, we had a Vulcan mind meld, but all the stories were mine, and Jack just typed them up. Jack is a literary Harvard third in his class genius inside guy, but I am the outside guy. I'm the marketing maven, and I came up with all these ideas, like I'm being 50 million Diet Coke cases a month for 6 months, raise all the blood for the American Red Cross with the chiropractors. They went out to their 25 million patients and said, hey, if you'll come back, we'll give you a free adjustment if you give a pint of blood. And we gave them a little Chicken Soup for the Soul third helping. And it was amazing. We got enough blood cryogenically frozen for a year and a half in advance with the Red Cross. And now we're doing that again today, just because we do a lot of cause-related charity to sell more books than anybody.
Yeah, so speak to that in terms of perseverance. I mean, I think that is something that a lot of people have within them, but they don't actually carry it out. And some of that may have to do with their own self-esteem or something. You guys believed in this idea 101%.
Exactly.
So how did that motivate you to kind of keep on going?
I've been selling since I was 9 years old. My parents didn't have any money, so I had to go sell greeting cards to buy the bicycle I wanted and buy clothes. And I sold 376 boxes in 1 month. But my mother taught me a little one clean 4-letter word, NEXT. So you just keep saying next, because somebody out there wants what you got, and you just haven't synchronized in time and space with whomever that is. And everybody has a destiny code. And I think my destiny code is to get everyone in the world to read, because you can't succeed unless you read. And Larry, you've been inspiring Mike to be a great reader. So you guys are a perfect mastermind and example of this. And Mike, who's done phenomenal in business, has found his new mental enterprise, at least on the 2 or 3 calls I've had with him. And if I'm misstating any of that, Mike, you can correct it. But even in our book, Ask, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, look, if you can't read, you can't succeed as much as you could if you did read.
Right.
I've never said it that way. Did that make sense? I
It
know
did,
what I'm thinking.
absolutely.
Totally. And that takes us to Ask, right? Ask is the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. That I've already started to read that. I just got through the prologue, and Michaela, I mean, that the story of Michaela is phenomenal. It's great. It's beautiful. Tell us about Ask, and tell us about what it means to ask in business and in life.
Well, my wife and I have been super blessed to talk in 80 countries, 7 million people live. And what we met is great people, well-educated people, good attitudes, all kinds of stuff. But the difference between somebody succeeds a little and somebody succeeds a lot, based on what Larry was just saying, is your sense of self-worthfulness. If you can ASK to GET, and ask is an acronym, obviously it means ask, seek, and knock. But the second part most people didn't get until we wrote it, which is get every treasure. And the real treasures we're talking about is when you get the inside treasure, then you get the outside treasure. And the inside treasure is not available in the world mind. It has to come from your inner mind to get your outer result. Like when I went bankrupt, I was not supposed to succeed again. I thought I should kill myself for a while in 1974. And then all of a sudden I found out I had this ability to speak. And then once I spoke, I learned I could write. And once I spoke and write, then I could do big business. And I've run 200 million, I've sold $2 billion worth of books and $1 billion worth of licensing. So everybody can do it, the menopause, and it doesn't matter what your chronology is, given that we've got this crazy inflation, which we chatted about. I've just done a YouTube video called You Got to Out-Inflate Inflation. And that includes all the retirees that are listening. They're going, not me, man, I got enough retirement forever. You haven't got. If real inflation, according to Statos stats, is 22%, so you better be out inflating inflation. The only way to do that is innovative thinking, read positive self-help action books like the kind I write, and the kind that got me out of my being depressed so I could be expressed.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're starting a menopause.com book club shortly, with the idea that we realized, because it's not just Mike. I mean, there are a lot of people, whether they've gone to college or not, or it doesn't matter, who just either don't have the time to read, don't have the inclination to read. And, whether you read a book like yours or whether you read a classic fiction book, it stimulates your mind, it stimulates your energy, and it makes you, to a certain degree, think outside the box, I think. And that's why, what you're telling people to do, whether it's read your books or just read and educate yourself, I think that that can make a difference in terms of somebody not only finding their own self-worth, but also saying, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and take a chance, go out and do what it is that I want to do. That's been our message since we started this. Just because you hit 50 doesn't mean, I can't do anything anymore. Right.
It's interesting about this ask to get. Is that it? Ask to get?
Yeah, get every treasure. Now we're talking about your inner treasures that'll show up in your outer financial treasures, your relationship treasures, all the stuff that you guys are talking about, your spiritual treasures. And to hitchhike on what both of you are saying, but go back to what Larry was saying, brain is what the school teaches us, which is nice. It teaches us stuff in stuff. But then you got another level of that that's mind power, which is unlimited, because you can't, the best neurosurgeon can't go inside the brain and see what's going on in there. Then you got another level, which is soul is unlimited, bigger. And once you really go through the hierarchy I'm teaching in Ask, which is you have your self-worth, what do you want to be, do, and have? Then you go to self-expression. You do it like I did as a speaker, and then people said, well, I got to have that story in a book. So I started to find out I could be in 47 years of book writing, I've learned that I'm pretty masterful at that. But then you go into self-realization where you go vertical with God or infinite intelligence or ultimate love. There's 367 names. So somebody could get caught off by one name, but there's unlimited. And this is where you pray, meditate early in the morning or at night, whenever it is you do it, or during the day, and you wake up that inner soul, because your soul is unlimited. And that's where the COVID confinement cocoon has compressed us. And I'm saying that the people that wake up and listen to your show are going to get expressed.
Wow, that's really interesting. And the thing about asking, unfortunately, I learned it too late in life, and maybe because I didn't go to college, or maybe because I didn't read a lot. But later on in life, I started asking, and maybe it was the confidence that I started getting in myself, because when I started to ask, I started to get my business went up and up and up. And the more it went up, the more I asked, right? And so I wish I had learned that much sooner when I was a kid, and I was so afraid to speak up and ask for what I wanted. And now, I mean, look, we have the best-selling author of all time sitting here with us this morning only because we asked you to be on. I mean, most people would be intimidated to even approach you, right? But you were so open, and you did it. So all I did was ask.
That's it. But here's the deal that we think we found, because we get hundreds of letters a day now because this is a bestseller. We say, don't get one, get two books. Ask The Bridge from Your Dreams to Destiny. Mark and Crystal wrote it, but you go over the 178 questions in here with your spouse, with your business partner, with your mastermind partner, with your church, temple, ashram, synagogue, mosque partner, whoever it is, and you will find out who you are, because it's back to what Larry asked about, is who are you is the real question. Because once you know who you are and what your destiny code is, and I want to talk to that just ever so briefly, then you skyrocket like you did in asking and built your business and exponentially grew. The point is, most people never know who they are. Well, I grew up and I'm going to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a garbage man. It doesn't matter. That's a job. That's not who you are and who you can become. And some people are going to unveil it. I love this show because they'll unveil it late, right? And if you unveil who you are late, it doesn't matter. Grandma Moses started painting at 101 and painted to 103. And she said, boy, I missed all that time. You can't go backwards. We only got the sweet now and now.
Yeah. And, it's a less, but it was common in my generation and before in medicine, that because of the intensity involved in going to medical school and learning and going to residency and all that, that very often you have very little time for outside interests. I mean, maybe tennis or something like that, right? But no other passion. Fortunately, I majored in political science and was always interested in writing and everything. So I had outside interest. But I see guys now that are 80 years old that are still working at surgery, which is kind of dicey. But it's because if they retire, they don't know what to do with themselves, because they're defining themselves as Dr. So-and-so, not I'm so-and-so, I'm Joe. It's like, no, I'm Dr. Joe. And you take the doctor away and everything goes away. And so I think the idea of, like you say, find out who you are and then find your destiny. Medicine may have been your destiny, but maybe there are other things. When you were a kid, you wanted to do this or wanted to do that. And I think it's important for people, especially in this age group, to look back. And we emphasize that in menopause. Look back. What would you have done when you were 15 if you could have done anything? And whatever that is, as long as it's not like being an astronaut when you're 75 or something, although look at Bill Shatner, he went up when he was 90. Go after it, go do it, right? Revisit that and bring that out of you. And again, that's why I think what you're recommending is so important to people.
Well, Art Linkletter and I, who most people that are over 50 remember, anybody over 45 remembers, he had kids say the darndest thing, house
Right.
parties, people are funny. He and I wrote a book when he was 98. Now, he still would have been alive at 101, except that his wife died, and he literally was heart struck and couldn't stand it. Like, he called my wife and I, we were very close friends. right? And saying, come to our house and I want you to bring your whole family. I said, wait a second. I got 5 kids and 6 grandkids. You want all of us? He said, yeah, you guys will have a pool day and we're just going to have fun. I said, you got 38 great grandkids. Why don't you invite them? He said, no, you're my best friend now. I've lost Walt Disney. I've lost Jack Benny, and he said, I mean it. You're my best friend. Like we talked every Sunday for an hour or two, and the guy was a genius. But the point that when we wrote our book called How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life, which is what you're talking to, we said, don't retire from something to nothing, which is what you're saying about the medical doctors. Retire from something to something bigger, better, and stronger. Retire, put on new tires in the car, go in a new direction, rewire yourself. And you got to start rewiring yourself today. Because you said, if you knew you could not fail in whatever it is you're supposed to do, back to what you said, Larry, about it being 15 years old, right? I mean, and look at what you've done. And look at what Mike's done. He's built an empire and now he's building a new thing, menopause, because age is something happening. 10,000 in America turn 65 every day. But that's pretty much the same and true in Japan and in India and in China.
Yeah.
Our motto is live life, live young. And what happens to a man, especially a man over 50, right? What happens to them? They start to lose their relevance. They start to lose their mojo. What have you found? I mean, what kind of inspiration can you give to our audience that when you hit 50, I mean, you were just cranking at 50 and you're cranking now and you are an inspiration. So what inspirational message can you give our audience?
First, thank you for saying that. And I am 74, and I really believe all the 4 things I teach in the book. Figure out, number 1, what you want, and you ask yourself and ask others and ask God. Those 3 principles we teach and ask. But then number 2, it's got to be put in writing. And I got 10 moonshot goals that I want to do. And what's astounding to me is that we're pulling some of them off, which I'll talk about. Then you got to visualize it. Your mind is your imagination. Your imagination has nothing to do with your brain. You're born over-endowed with 18 billion brain cells, but your mind is ecstatic. Like I was saying, the mind and the spirit are bigger than your body, and only humans in the animal kingdom that we know of have mind, curiosity, and soul power. There's no real animals may have a soul, but and one of my daughters is a horse whisperer and all that crap. But and I'm saying that she can relate to him, resonate with him. They talk to her in the middle of the night. She said, "Daddy," back when she was only 14 and couldn't drive, our horse is ready to deliver, and you're going to take me there. I said, "How do you know?" Said, "Talk to me." And we went there, and the horse dropped at 2:30 in the morning. So maybe that soul power. I don't know if the horse has a soul or not. It was an Arabian. It was great. But the point is, to your question, I'm sorry I over-answered it here, but is you got to be, I'm in the most exciting time in my life. We're building a publishing company called Mark Victor Hansen Library because nobody can get published. There's 3 choices. You self-publish, hybrid publishers, which our company is, or you go to a big house. If you go to a big house, they say, you have a list of 20 million database that'll buy your book. Nobody, unless your name's Rock or unless you're a superstar like Bob Dylan, has that kind of list, I suspect. So, we fit a middle category that is just rocking, and everybody we talk to has a message, has a story, because my life is about telling stories and helping share stories. Everybody ought to pull that story out, and if you do it yourself or with us, that's up to you, but everybody's got to share their story. And our company in the first 6 months became a multi-million-dollar company, and I could not, and I'm happy. Now, I'm going to go just a little long. We're helping a 94-year-old write his book, and then we're helping a 14-year-old who we just met. We were down in Houston talking to 700 people, and this kid comes up shaking, and I said, "What are you shaking about?" He said, "I'm intimidated." I said, "Why?" He said, "You're world's best-selling author." I said, "Look, I couldn't intimidate a dog or anything, so get off it. What's your story?"
He knew the intimidation. I told you. Yeah.
He said, "I'm worth $843,000. I go, "What?" And we did his book called The Garage, and it's now #1 on Amazon because he took the real estate test at 8 years old in Ohio, passed it, went out and shoveled snow in Ohio, bought his first house for $10,000, now owns 60 houses. So what I'm saying is, I don't know who's going to have the best story, but his story needs to be read. I didn't know I could buy real estate, and without my parents' permission, starting at 7 and 8 years old, which he did, and now he's 14 and soon to be a millionaire. And at 94, this guy was in the Korean War, and just no one's ever asked for his story. And he's got great stories. These stories, Look, I think stories are our life, and we live or die by our story. And what Larry was saying, Larry, you answer this, but if you don't have a good news story, other than I'm just a doctor, nothing wrong with being a doctor, but if you don't have another story that I'm also blank, you miss out on some life. That's what this whole menopause is about, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, it's all about reinventing yourself or rediscovering yourself as you approach these retirement years. And that's why I mean, besides money as an issue for people, whether they can retire or not, it's also what am I going to do? I mean, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to golf. All right, well, you can't golf 24/7, right? Or I'm going to travel, right? It's like, okay, well, I mean, how many trips are you going to go on in a year? So let's say that takes up a total of maybe, 10 weeks of your life. You still got 42 weeks to fill. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? What's going to get you out of bed every morning with the passion that you had for what you were doing? And you have to find that. Or as we know, I mean, people who retire without a cause generally die fairly soon after they retire. So
In
you
18
have to
months.
have something, and I think, again, not only are you a classic example of that, but I think, what you're telling people in terms of how to pull that out of themselves is really vital.
Guys, we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We want to talk more about passion, how to follow it, and more about your books, Mark. I mean, you've got, I think, 315 or 18 titles out there, different titles. I mean, really, that's insane. But we want to talk about it because you're crazy. But we'll be right back.
Rougiette Ready is an incredible new way to treat ED. Rougiette doesn't just work, it works fast. 5 times faster than those other generic pills. And because it combines tadalafil with sildenafil, it can last for up to 36 hours.
Guys, take back control of your sexual health and ED. Be more spontaneous and boost your confidence. Try Rougiette Ready today.
All right, we're back with another question for our guest, Mark Victor Hansen. So we've all seen a lot of people who, I guess for loss of a better term, could be considered life coaches, right? People like Tony Robbins. I did some research. There's somebody named Robin Sharma who wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. The Secret was out there as a very, very successful book on finding yourself and putting things out into the universe so they come back to you and all that.
Which I loved.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion, I think, on the part of people of, are all these people the same? And so here's an opportunity for them to find out from the most successful author of a book that helps you kind of find your purpose, to say why are you different? Or if you're not, why follow you rather than them?
By the way, I've never been asked that kind of question before, so thank you. First of all, I love my peers, and I'm totally different than Tony Robbins. He's got guts I haven't got. He's had millions of people walk around fire. He has talked to 100 million. I've only talked to 7 million. But in terms of book sales, there's nobody that can touch what I do because I can outmarket everybody because I keep coming up with absolutely original ideas. Like in our little publishing house now, we're doing a book by the guy who created Reebok and aerobics. We all grew up with the same thing in aerobics, watching Jane Fonda and Shaq when he was only 17. He was still 7'2", but he was only 17. And we're going to put our order forms for books in over 1 billion pairs of shoes. We're doing a book with a guy who created DocuSign, and he's done 11.2 trillion, that's spelled with a T, DocuSigns.
Wow.
And I took him with to Horatio. I'm a Horatio Algier Award winner, and I've nominated him for next year, Keith Cratch. And he said, well, what can I do that no one's ever done before? I said, look, on the bottom of every DocuSign, we can do it in 12 pica, 8 pica. I don't care, whatever your lawyer tells us we can do, and say, the creator and the CEO of DocuSign has just written this book. My wife came up with the title for him. We do great titles. We won that award in Guinness Book of Records too, but it's called Signature of Trust. Isn't that a cool title?
Yes.
And if he's done 11.2 trillion in the last 4 years, is he going to do more DocuSigns in the next 4 years? The answer in my mind is we're going into the most exponential times ever. And that's what I'm really teaching and answer your question how I differ, is it the only hope we have? We are in a recession. Some people don't believe it yet. We're going to probably go into depression unless we get 22,000 people become billionaires. Now you say, how does that work? Well, if we've all been taught in college and university to think linearly, you take one step and you go 30 steps, you're 30 steps down. Exponential, though, is 1, then it's 2, then it's 4, 8, 16, 32. And the point is, $1 in the 30-turn exponentiality is $1 billion. And we never had a real billionaire. Yes, you had Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie. I'm scholarly in both guys because I study exponential entrepreneurship is what I really teach that differentiates me from anyone else. From an individual level, a lot of these guys are doing corporate level stuff. That's like Robert Sharma. I don't do that. I do individual stuff. How does an individual do that? And it's never been done before. And we never had $1 trillion company until 5 years ago. And now we got $5 trillion companies. And we got tons of people that I meet every day that say, I'm going to join the B club, meaning they're going to become billionaires. Well, that's what we need to pay off the debt, because the debt is now $43 trillion. That's not the unfunded debt, just funded. But we only total earnings in America is 21 trillion. So we literally got to double in the next couple of years so we don't lambaste our grandkids, our great grandkids with debt. And I, for one, say America is the most innovative, creative, dynamic culture with free enterprise run right ever in history. And my dad taught me the more enterprising you are, the freer you are. And that's what I'm saying to these old people. We need the seniors to come back to work, go make fortunes, because they got ideas, they got experience. And I'll finish with one line. As you know, I wrote the 1-Minute Millionaire, and I say, look, there's a million ways to make a million. I don't care what you do. There's one perfect, easy, acceptable way to each and every one. And when you go do it, it makes everybody better off if it's honest, ethical, moral, and no one worse off.
Wow.
So again, I mean, you know, a lot of the life coaches are more about, you know, living your life a certain way and finding contentment and all that sort of stuff. But there are also a lot of people who are about, you know, pursue your dreams to become wealthy, but not in a nefarious way. Just, you know,
Right.
Wealth allows you to do a lot more things in life, you know, whether it's for your family or whether it's for the society as a whole. But what about, I mean, not everybody has to be a billionaire, right? I mean, people can say, boy, if I could just get $1 million, you know, these might be people who worked as, you know, busboys or something all their lives, right? And for them, it might be a matter of, wow, if I had $500,000 or $1 million, I would love that. Would the principles of that book still apply to them in terms of being able to, you know, exponentially increase their wealth?
Okay, so there's 3 questions latent in what you said. I'm going to try to answer all 3 of them with 1 or 2 stories. First of all, there's no freedom until you have money freedom, so you can buy your time freedom, so you can have your relationship freedom. So back to what we talked about 4 or 5 questions ago, you have passionate, purposeful freedom where you've got some magnificent obsession. So the reason we wrote 1-Minute Millionaire, Bob Allen and I, and first of all, he sold 50 million copies of Nothing Down to 50 Ways to Buy Real Estate, Nothing Down. Bob and I were great friends and said, I need you to write this book with me. And we wrote it, the first book, 2 parts, how do your left brain work 24 things to become a millionaire. But then the story is about a real woman. She came to our seminar. We were doing 100 million a year. We had 397 employees, 397 employees. It was a great seminar called Enlightened Millionaire Institute. And she had been fired at age 60 by Perry Como, which the 3 of us remember, and everybody listening probably remembers. Perry Como says, you're old. Now, she's still a great singer, but she didn't save her money like a lot of the people watching, right? You're supposed to save 10%, stash it away, invest it. And if you start at 20, then you're going to be rich at 30. You can't not be a millionaire and make it in an inflating, crazy world that we're in. And it doesn't matter when you start. So in 90 days, we said to this woman who's real and alive still, we'll help you become a millionaire. And but you got to do MSIs, multiple sources of income. If you have one source of income, any one of them could get stopped, stifled, regulated, the bank closed, whatever, wouldn't lend you money, all that stuff. So we made her $1 million, and then she was our poster child for the book and in reality. But then we had to fictionalize her story because, you know, Random House wanted to make it into a movie. They haven't made it into a movie yet, but it will come to pass, I believe, now, especially seeing as the economy's crushing people. And by the way, I don't want anyone crushed. What I want you to do, remember, don't be depressed. study my stuff and everybody else's good stuff and get expressed, because there's enough good stuff out there. Like your show, for the first time in history, didn't exist. What, 6 months ago? How long have you guys been doing this?
2 years.
About 2 years,
Almost
yeah.
2.5. Yeah.
3 years. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know how long. So the point is, though, is that the need is getting bigger and bigger. So you guys are right. I wrote a whole book with the world's greatest marketer, Jay Abraham, called Grow Rich in Your Niche. You guys have hit a niche that no one else saw.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think we did. There's really a need for this. And as the baby boomers get older, they're looking for other things and other people to, to reinvent themselves. And so you wrote the 1-Minute Millionaire. So with that, how do our age group, how do we become millionaires at this age? And I know you talked about the lady. Did she become the millionaire that
Yeah. A multi-millionaire. Now she's worth about a $10 She's over $10 million. Yeah.
Wow.
Because once you learn it, you don't stop. Like when you started doing seismic security of hospitals, you said, well, I did one hospital, I'm done. No, you've done almost every hospital in California. And most of your listeners may not know what a great thing you've done. So you deserve a pat on both shoulders.
Thank you. So you say there is a chance that people our age and older can make millions still.
Not even a chance. It's now a necessity. Remember, I said I define an entrepreneur as somebody who finds a problem. My God, we got 8 billion problems on the planet. All you got to do is find one little problem that no one else is looking at, solve it, exponentialize it, meaning scale it, make it big, and then go make a vast fortune. And when you're doing that, you're going to employ a lot of other people. And now here's the problem in America. 10% of people, thanks to, I love Elon Musk, but he went out and found the people who wouldn't come back to work in the office. He took pictures of all of them, and they're all out fishing and goofing off in Aspen. So in Austin, Texas. So he fired all of them, but he now gives permission to a lot of people that won't come back into the office because they're goofing off. Like we own some real estate in a couple of states, and we're just calling, and they have in where we buy some real estate in Tulsa, they have all the people are at remote work, so they're not answering the phone. They're goofing with their kids, they're playing, they're at school, whatever they're doing, but they're not doing. We couldn't get the water turned on in one of our houses today. I'm talking about today when we're interviewing. My wife was just on the phone for 48 minutes waiting because this woman's out goofing around rather than really working. So we called the governor and said, hey, you got to bring these people back into the office because nobody's watching them. And if most people aren't disciplined, I'm saying you've got to make a decision to succeed. Then you got to have some discipline. Then you got to have dedication. And you got to be going toward a really good destination that makes your heart sing. I could not write. I wake up in the middle of the night coming up with stuff I've got to write. I mean, it is my right livelihood, and everybody out there has a right livelihood that would excite them and titillate them at the fiber of their being. And what they got to do is, back to your questions, wake up. And what we're teaching in the Ask book is before you go to sleep, go 400 times, because you got to get past the noise of the day. The dog barking, the kids doing it, your daughter or son doing this or that you go, oh God, I'm going to go crazy. You just keep saying, God, what's your destiny? Or infinite intelligence, what's your destiny for me? What's your destiny for me? What's your destiny? In the middle of the night, it'll come to you because you cannot ask without receiving an answer. Now, you got to be smart enough to get your little butt out of bed, tell your spouse or spouse equivalent, I listened to this knucklehead, Mark Victor Hansen. He said, this idea is going to come. I got to get up in the middle of the night. I'm going to have to turn on the lights and write it down or dictate it into my recording smartphone, I'll call it, right? And then keep it, because you will have ideas. But and the world's greatest inventor right now that's alive, I know him pretty well, Dr. Ray Kurzweil, the guy who invented nanotechnology, nanobots, Honey, I Shrunk the Kid movie. Ray, and I'm sure Larry knows of him pretty well, is it Kurzweil, who's head of Google X, right? That's 10X everything. He says every night he goes to get and gives himself a problem, and he wakes up in the middle of the night with a solution. And that's why he's invented more stuff than anyone, as the current our living Edison, right? And the same thing Elon Musk does. It works for everyone, but you can't go to bed saying, I'm going to drink myself silly so I can sleep all night. That's not that we shouldn't have a good glass of wine, which the three of us will do someday down the road. But you've got to program the work days to what you want to accomplish the next day.
So let's shift gears for a minute, because
Sure.
the other increasing scourge of people over 50 or 60 is divorce. And statistics show that 50% of first marriages fail and 60% of second marriages fail. And obviously there's a reason for that. You were married for 26 years and realized that it wasn't working for you at a certain point, and took a very direct approach, with so a lot of times when people get divorced, it's because they get caught by their wives having an affair because they're unhappy in their relationship, right? Or they get depressed and inactive, and the wife is the one that says, I can't do this anymore. So, we kind of like the idea of a sort of honesty in divorce. And you and your ex-wife actually wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul Divorce and Recovery. And so what advice would you give to men or women who realize that the passion and the soulmate type of relationship that they may have had in their marriage, for whatever reason, has gone away, whether they've grown apart, they have different ideas about how life should progress? First of all, how do you realize that? And what's your advice in terms of how to handle that?
Okay, two phases. I've never gotten that question that way before. Thank you, Larry.
Oh, this is great because you've done a million interviews, and you so far we've stumped you twice. You're not stumped, but we've hit questions that you've not been asked before. So that's pretty good.
I love it. So phase number one is if you're in a relationship that is not working, you need to journal. And I teach always journal everything, but journal what's working and what's not working. And I obviously did that. And I said, look, if I'm really going to live to be 127, I'm in my deep 50s already. This clearly is not working. So I asked for a divorce and all that good, happy stuff, because we were nowhere near the same page anymore, right? I want to keep growing, and we owned a second home in the Kona, Hawaii. And she said, well, I just want to have martinis every night. I said, I'll go nuts. I need to work. I need to be talking to you guys. I need to be challenged. I think all of us need to be challenged somehow. Now, she didn't want to be challenged at the level I was challenged, because some of the challenges I do have a lot of risk. Like I'm a volcanic rock jumper, and she didn't like it when I popped my Achilles tendon, stuff like that. So that's that phase. Second, once I was divorced, though, the more critical thing is write down, what do you want in your ideal person? And I wrote down 267 things I needed in my wife: the attributes, the qualities, the values, the virtues. We had to have the same values. She had to want to travel with me. If she had kids and I had kids, our kids had to get along. I wanted to keep growing for the rest of my life. I don't ever want to retire from something to nothing, because like Larry said, that's guaranteed. Then you're cooperating with death. And I don't think you need to cooperate with death, right? I want to cooperate with life. I'm in a physical form, and I'm a spirit that has a body, and I want to see how much I can maximize that. So, I met my wife. I could see her radiant, effervescent, joyous beauty. Now, if you know Curly in photos, all of us have an auric energy. If you've seen pictures of my wife, and everybody will go back and look this up, and you go, holy smoly. Anyhow, she is the goddess of exquisiteness at every level, and the wisest woman I've ever met.
And the question everybody's going to have is, how the hell did he get her?
That's right. I ask myself that question.
Me too. Larry and I both married over our heads, so
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I think I believe with 8 billion people alive, there's a right, perfect person for everyone. Now, in the old days, when only people had an ecological sweet spot of 29 miles as far as you could walk, no deal. You had to marry somebody in the town. They could be ugly, they could be dumb, they could be somebody important or not important. But now we get to make our own decisions. We get to be head of in our own sovereignty. Anyhow, I married the idyllic woman. I wanted a soulmate, but the truth is I got a twin flame, which is when you put two lit candles together, it jumps eightfold, that exponentiality. And we can finish each other's thoughts. That's why we write books together. We live together 24 hours a day. We believe the same stuff. Everybody ends up loving her more than me, which is fine. And because we're not in a competition, we're just. And back to what you said about the story of Michaela, Hollywood came to us, and she's finishing that as a movie right now. So it's sort of exciting. What you want to do is, back to your whole menopause thing, how do we max out our excitement? How do we max out our opportunity? How do we max out optimizing our health, our wealth, our relationship, our spirituality, and the fulfillment of our souls?
I'm going to ask you another left turn question, and that is, you listed all these attributes, and the chances of you finding somebody that meets 267 attributes is pretty slim. I like the number 3 because I think there's a lot of power in the number of 3, no matter what you believe. I mean,
It triangulates. That's right.
Plato thought because of the triangle, the Babylonian gods, they were divided into 3, the Trinity and Christianity, right? 3 is a magical number. So if you had written that list of just 3 main attributes for the ideal woman for you, what would those 3 be?
That's a great question, by the way. I love it.
First of all, my teacher in grad school, as you know, when I was working on my doctorate and finished it was Bucky Fuller, and he said everything in the universe triangulates, and then the next that's as a flat, and then you go to polyhedron, it goes to tetrahedron next, more than most people want to know. But what I did is in our 20th anniversary issue, I wrote all the goals that I had, and the ones, I don't know that I could do it in 3. I did bold the stuff that was mandated.
I know, I saw that, and that was still a long list.
Yeah. So she had to be a great lover. She had to totally love me and demonstrate it. And she had to like my businesses, plural. And she had to have her own money. And an answer to the question is that I teach that because I teach, God's highest color at the top of the electromagnetic spectrum is purple. I only sign everything in purple. She was a victory. You never cross out your goals. I got the eggs, I got the milk. Because the trouble with 3 for me, Larry, and I'm not objecting to whatever you want to do, but the average person when you're in high school, right? You're 16. I want eye candy right on my arm as a man. As a woman, you go, I want him tall, dark, and handsome. Well, you and I are thin of hair now, and there's 4 kinds of hair: in, thin, fuzz, and was. And you and I are
we're in the was phase.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
not like Mike. Mike, everything he eats turns to hair, right?
Yeah, but Mike's only 5'2", so we have that on him. So yeah,
Mike, you need to punk rock your hair so you 5'6".
You got it.
You guys are so fun. So that's my differential. But she was 267 on 267, which is I did not expect to ever get married again. And she is like the perfect person. And we wake up happy, we go to sleep happy, we do everything, and we're happy. And that'd be so. In answer to your triangle, our thing is, first of all, the top of our triangle is health. The second part is love, and the third part is freedom. Those are the parts of our triangle, our highest value system. So it took a long time to get there, and I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
And can you have more than one soulmate, you think? In other words, do you think your first wife was truly your soulmate, or it was somebody you thought maybe was, and because things began to diverge, you realized that, well, if we were soulmates, we should have been kind of following the same path?
My experience, and I'd love to hear you guys reflect on this, is my first wife, it was not an experimental wife. It was just, I think men hit a time, right? Everything is, one of my daughters got her degrees in evolutionary biology. And in evolutionary biology, little boys walk at 12 months, little girls walk at 9 months. We all start to talk at 5, right? That kind of stuff. And humanity started to read 500 years ago, thanks to Gutenberg, but we started talking 6,000, 7,000 years ago, or whatever the real anthropological part is. The point is, I think there's also a time, like I was 31 and I thought, man, I'm going to get old here and I want to have kids. So I wonder if, I don't need to get married and fall in love. And that's what I believe. Now, do you believe there's a time that your heart opens up and you say, whoops, I better fall in love? I'm of age.
I think that may be true. That didn't happen to me, but I think that could happen to a lot of people who feel the need to be married. And I think actually it's probably more common for women, would be my guess, that they get a lot more pressure to be married and or have kids than men. But I do think it's a real thing. It didn't apply to me. I don't think it applied to Mike either.
No, it didn't.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a real thing. But generally, I mean, I think, like I said, we have several friends who have been remarried, and they seem happier because, not because of how the new wife looks per se, but because they seem to fit better, for lack of a better word. They seem to have the same spiritual and ideals moving forward in life.
For you,
Um,
60%
Spiritual
of
mind,
women. Sorry, Larry, you said 60% of
second marriages end in divorce. Right.
So,
Well, and of course, that's related to insight. So, for instance, you got divorced and it was very clear why, right? But a lot of people get divorced because of baggage that they have that they don't appreciate from the other side. So, like, for instance, my wife and I went to counseling years ago, and both of our eyes were opened to the negativity that we were bringing to the relationship, right? And it was fixable. And that's why now we've been married for 38 years, going on 39, and been together for 44 years, because we were able to say, okay, well, those are fixable. But there's a lot of people who don't do that. They get out of one relationship and they bring the same baggage to the next relationship, thinking that it was all the other spouse's fault. And I think that may be why, there's so much negativity, and they may not be putting the time and effort into defining what they really want, like you did. Had you not met Crystal when you met her, you might have been looking for another 2, 3, 4 years for the right person. It just so happened that you were lucky and she came into your life at the right time.
But you got so much there. That's pregnant with opportunity for me to talk to you. First of all, Crystal and I did go through, as a matter of fact, I just did talk to the, what are called the First Foundation, the Indians up in Canada, and this woman just really got me. My computer wasn't working, and she says, we will do a drum ceremony and your computer will work. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm done for 3 hours. I got to talk, and I've got the preparation here, but without the computer, I'm done. Hey, she so impressed me. I said, Crystal, we got to go up there before we get married and let a real Indian take us through getting rid of the baggage. And we spent 3 days with her and we got rid of the baggage. So I think that's critical. And then the second point you're making is, what you got to do is look at the relationship and you say, what would it take to be 100%? And if we're at 51 and the 49 is fixable, then do it. If the 49 is not fixable, like one of the things that I wrote was, you can't be an alcoholic, you can't be a drug user, you can't not exercise. That's a double negative. You can't, decide to be a chunko and not eat, right? Or whatever, however
Can't
way
be a
you
philanderer.
right.
you can't none of that. And one of my goals was we had to be 100% monogamous, which we are. All those kind of things. Just because we're in a time that we're two hearts and we match as one complete soul. And I really believe, whether it's a mastermind in business where two get together at the power 11, or a real marriage, two have 11. Most people don't go for the high goal of how could I have the most magnificent marriage ever, not only just to bear kids, but like it with the kids, like it without, when the kids leave, and when people we're talking to are empty nesters. And my mother had a tough time handling empty nesting when my brother, 4 of us all left to go to college or work, right? She said, oh my God, Dad and I, what do I got to, because they didn't work on anything with themselves.
Yes.
This is interesting, Mark. You'll appreciate this. Our mutual friend, good friend, Mark Fournier, helped me 28 years ago in my marriage. He was visiting us, and we were having some issues. We had 2 little girls, and he sat us down and said, okay, this is what you need to do, in my opinion. And he, for hours, just sat on the couch in the living room and talked to us. And he says, okay, now go out and have a nice dinner. I'm going to watch the girls for you. And we went out and we discussed everything that Mark suggested. And we're going on 38 years in October. So
everybody needs a Mark Fournier,
right.
Counselor that you can digest. And it could be a priest, minister, rabbi, it could be a best friend, it could be a psychologist.
Sure.
But let's do the real thing. Just like I'm going to say, and Larry, you and I don't know each other that well, but only 3% of the plastic surgeons are really superior like you, that do a superb job. Only 3% of the speakers, and you happen to mention really good speakers, Tony and Robin, but there's a lot of them. But but out of 5,000 of us that say we make our living there, there's only Zig Ziglar and I once said maybe there's 100 of us that really make money and really help people. And now I thought that was illuminating.
Those are two different things. Making money and helping people don't always work together.
Right.
Yeah.
in surgery or speaking, right?
Right.
So the point is, but to do the psychic surgery to make sure you're divorced or don't get divorced, you got to make sure. Like one of the guys in our business wrote the book Stop Divorce and made $10 million the first year. And I don't know if he's any good or not, but he's a brilliant marketer. The point I'm making is find the counselor that resonates with your heart and soul, because, and you probably got to check out 3 or 4. I mean, Mark Fournier is a rare, brilliant, wise, he's a close friend also. And we're doing a lot of projects together. Like I do the Mark's Minutes, where we're going to do limitless videos on the majestic thinking of Elon Musk, the majestic and magical thinking of Elvis Presley, and we'll go through the greatest minds and how they learned to do that. So you couldn't have picked a better person, and thank God he did it that many years ago. He was good then, and he's better now.
And check out our podcast with Mark Fournier on menopause.com.
We did 4 of them with Mark, so we have a series of them. And we're looking forward to it. So, okay, we got to take a break, one more break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about Mark Victor Hansen Library, which is really, really interesting. Can't wait to talk about it. So we'll be right back.
You know, age is really just a number. I can still roar like a lion, dance like a star, and run like a frightened schoolgirl. That's right. I'm a menopause man, over 50, sure. Slower and grayer, perhaps. Hairier in places, well, sadly, yes. But I still have a lot of living to do. So join me at menopause.com. It's a site for men over 50, chock full of stuff like sex, health, money, travel, entertainment, sports, and did I mention sex? Menopause.com. Come on. Ooh, feel that breeze.
Okay, we're back, and our guest is Mark Victor Hansen. Mark, how's it going so far? Because I feel it's fantastic, but what do you think?
I'm beyond elated. I love talking to you two guys because we're willing to push the edge of the envelope. Most people are out there going, do those guys all really think this big, and do they really believe all that stuff? So, and the answer is yeah, because look, with God, all things are possible. What does that leave out? And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, look, the God stuff, the good stuff, the intrinsic humanity of all of us is to be expressive, to be happy, to be joyous, not only with first of all, you got to be with yourself before you can be with your spouse, and then with your kids, grandkids, and then your community, and then the world.
Right. That's true. So what I want to talk about, and Larry has been doing his research on it as well, is the Mark Victor Hansen Library. Now, that is an amazing thing that you're doing for people, because like you said, everybody has a book in them. I know I do. Larry, I know he's got 10. But you are following your passion. You're reinventing something else that hasn't been done before. So tell us about the Mark Victor Hansen Library.
I said it earlier in an earlier segment, but there's 3 choices. You self-publish, and I did write the book called You Have a Book in You, because everyone's got a book in them. And the best books haven't been written yet, and some of the best stories and technology and skills haven't been shared because you've been written it. Number 2 is you do a hybrid publisher. And there's a couple of us out there, but nobody is big or as fast growing as I am, because I love the business. I've seen the business shift so fast. I mean, because of COVID, we've gone from 19,000 bookstores to 400. So, and we've seen major companies, which will go unnamed, just lay off 8,000 people. And we know that Barnes & Noble is shaking right now. And we've seen, a lot of the bookstores are dying, which breaks my heart because, they're all buying online now. And then the third choice is you go to a major house, and there used to be 16,000 publishers. And what happens is, Random House and Simon & Schuster and a few of them have bought all those guys, but you can't even get in the door. The doors are locked unless you got 2 things: a giant agent, and number 2 is you've got a platform with about 20 million people. Well, unless you're a rock star, right, or a movie star like Tom Cruise, your chance of you getting a book deal is almost zero. So we go to the sweet spot of hybrid publishing, which everybody we meet, and we do charge $29,900, but you get a book and you get an audio, and audios are selling 70% more than books, which just is amazing to me. But we've come into a time when everybody's getting on the exercise thing, and when they're exercising, they're listening to books on audio, thank God, and information that's going to accelerate them and advance them. And then also people are driving longer distances now than ever. And some people are afraid to fly for a whole assortment of reasons and are traveling. So book sales electronically are higher than ever. And we've finished all these books, from the little kid I told you that became a millionaire by the time he was 14, almost 15, and the 94-year-old and everything in between. And we're having a ball. We're doing impact books. And I believe the people watching your show all have some impact they're supposed to make, some heart destiny desire that was coded in them that absolutely needs to get shared. And some people say, well, I don't feel worthy of writing a book. So all they do is they give us their ideas, their thinking, their philosophy, their beliefs. We turn it into fiction, because fiction books sell 10,000 to 1 over nonfiction. And fiction can change the world, like in the medical business. Andromeda Strain, thanks to Michael Crichton, changed the world. And now Michael Crichton's trainer at Harvard, Dr. Jay Sanders, who created Teladoc, because he couldn't get to the operation. He was stuck in a tunnel in Boston, so he got on the phone and he started telemedicine. So we're just finishing his book right now, Telemedicine Backwards from 2050 AD, and how maybe we can start taking care of 8 billion people that by 2050 will go to 12 billion people, probably. I mean, there's a lot of reasons it may not. But the point is that we're doing these exciting books, and then one more, we're doing a book called Trash to Cash. I believe every civilization, over 1,000 civilizations, have self-dusted, and they did it ignorantly out of killing themselves by polluting themselves. Like I opened up all the pyramids in Guatemala with the head of archaeology and anthropology, and we wrote in 2005 the article for National Geographic, Bill Saturno, and there were 10 million people, but they didn't know they self-polluted. Well, that's what America's doing. We got 10,000 landfills filled. And I, as a Horatio Alger Award winner, I knew Wayne Huizinga, who created all of them, but he only did 20 mil poly on the best. He didn't know that 50 years later, we'd still have the same landfill and the acids would eat through and go into the water table. That goes along with what we were talking about during a break. That's why women are getting breast cancer and all that stuff. We can now take, because one guy that I deal with, and I'm on the board of advisors, is the company is called reminingcorp.com in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This guy spent $300 million, 20 years. We figured out how to take all the waste, the trash, turn it back into cash. $5 trillion a year is spent on all those minerals, and then we junk them and throw them in the garbage. And we think, by the way, I'm not beating on anybody that picks up trash. That's not who I'm beating on. I'm saying, look, we just are awake to a brand new problem. We can take all that resource and more inexpensively turn glass to glass. 60% of all garbage is water. We get purified water that'll be clean of all the estrogens, all the other stuff we talked about during the break, and all of you missed it, so maybe Larry can go into it another time. We can turn metal to metal, plastic back to plastic. First time in history we can do that, because this guy has got the biggest Tesla museum in the world, and thinks like Elon Musk does, and is running a $6 billion company that you never heard of. And I said to Dean Rose, I said, man, I got to do this book with you. And he said, I don't have time to write a book. I said, you dictate it to me, and myself and my authors will get it done. And if I've over answered your question, I apologize, but there's so much excitement. Everybody's got some stories like that we could change the world. And I'll do one last thing. Plato, who obviously started education in the world, we can argue that, but Plato, right what Socrates said, but Plato said, whoever controls the story controls the world. We need to get our stories out. We need more stories. We don't need less stories.
We're going to have a link to your library, by the way, and we're going to show some of the book covers, which are just amazing. All the different book covers. You guys are award winners on that as well, I know. But that is such an interesting business for you to go into, and such a needed business, I think. And how do you take their book? You said you turned them into fiction, but you didn't nonfiction, fiction.
We can do both. When I discovered that the same thing written as a fiction book sells 10,000 to 1 better, I say, look, we'll do both. And for the biggest restaurateur in America, Bob Sikora, we're doing exactly that. We're doing his mini biography. So he's 85 years old. He'll give it to his kids, grandkids, and great grandkids, which I think is necessary. We've talked about that. But we'll do one of the giant thousands of restaurants called Mr. Lucky's, which is great. Now he's got another chain. At 85, he just started another chain here called Bobby's Barbecue. So when you guys come to Scottsdale, let me take you there. It is the world's best. But then he's starting a third thing at 85, and he's one of the guys I want on the show, Bob Sikora, who started Bobby McGee's and all kinds of restaurants. But he's starting enlightenment living centers because he hates going seeing. He's really rich and got ranches and all that, but he hates going seeing his old buddies have terrible food and have a terrible place to live. And nobody's ever decided to have places that are exciting to go to for seniors, so their imagination, their lives, and their romance stays alive and wonderful. Enlightenment Living Romance Center. Isn't that cool? So we're doing a book on that too.
Wow. That's awesome. So just to point out, because people who may be listening who want to write a book or who have written a book, I think you sort of clarified the difference, say, between the Mark Victor Hansen library and Amazon self-publishing. Amazon self-publishing essentially is you give them the manuscript, they print it in book form, and then you have to find your own cover designer. And I don't think they do an audio version for you. So those are the differences that go into what somebody could get from your library versus saying, well, I'm just going to go to Amazon and have it self-published because it's much cheaper.
Cheaper. By the way, if you can't afford me, which is, remember, I want to deal with the people that can afford us, and it's easy and effortless. I don't want anyone to go, I'm going to go refinance my car to go work.
Right. Right.
The other thing is that we are putting together the killer marketing team of all times, because God bless, if you take your book to any publisher and you get one of the big ones, Simon & Schuster, Random House, Harper, any of them, and I'm with all 7 of them. So it's not a question of, do I believe in them? Do I love them? And I talked to the chairman of Harper about one of the books we've done a bio on, somebody, the Reverend Ike, the biggest black minister ever, from wishes to riches. It took us a year and a half to write because it's that important a book, because he's bigger than Billy Graham, but to a black marketplace. If you can get in and do that, go do that. If you can't, you can do POD with Amazon, and it's a great way to go. It's better than not doing it, but if you can afford the middle ground where we do the most excellent cover, we make sure you're a happy camper, and we make sure we figure out where your market is before you start, because nobody else has ever done that. We say, tell me who you think your niche market is, and let's write to that. And yes, we can do fiction, and yes, we can do nonfiction, but if you got a choice, and then we're also going to literally take it around the world that no one else has done, because we got the top guy in Africa saying, I want every one of your books. We got the top guys in Hollywood saying content is king, but we're distribution, we're the queen. I said, good, let's get married. And we're doing that with, like we did this Savannah series, starting with our dear friend Mitzi Purdue, who does 22 million chickens a week at Purdue Chicken. And we did it called Rich Widows, because she fits the first question you asked me today, Larry, about what happens with rich widows. Well, what happens is no one had a good story to tell. So she, Mitzi is a phenomenal storyteller, and we finished the book for her, and it is rocking. So, and we want everyone to be a happy camper for the whole of their lives.
Well, that's the other question is, again, Amazon doesn't do anything unless you pay for ads to market the book. So you could have it on Amazon and it'll sit there with nobody knowing it exists. But you have a different way of getting it out there, correct?
Well, sorry, let me just jump in to give a second question here. So when somebody comes to you, your client wants several things. First of all, they want a book published that they can be proud of. I could care less if you write a book for me, if it ever sells. That's one attitude. Some people will come because they want it to sell and they want to make money from it, right?
Right.
And what's the third person that comes to you? The one that doesn't know how to write and needs the help to get started.
Well, that could be the other two as well.
Right.
Yeah, it goes to the first thing that Larry asked about early today. The third person is that they don't know who they are. And what happens is writing a book helps you discover who you are. What Socrates, who taught Plato, who taught Aristotle, who taught Alexander the Great to conquer the world and create the first library, Alexander the Great. And I think I'm the third library. So that was first, Andrew Carnegie second. But the point is, what did he say? The unexamined life is not worth living. Unless you write a book or write a book through and with us, and we write it with and for you, you miss part of your life. And look, Larry, I don't know how big everybody's mind is, but whatever it is, there's some part of it that has got to leave a record for the rest. Like take medicine. I'm pretty scholarly in a couple of MDs, but one of them is obviously Albert Schweitzer. If he was the greatest musician ever in Europe, he wanted to go help Christ get in Africa. And they said, we don't need teachers, we need doctors. So he went back to medical school, tropical medicine. And in case you didn't know it, he created, according to what I read, and you, if you've got different information, correct me, but is that he ended leprosy in Africa and cured it. Now, if that's true or not true, I can't tell you, but all I can tell you is Brian Tracy, who's one of my colleagues and a great thinker and an encyclopedia in our business, spent months with Albert Schweitzer in deepest, darkest Africa, which is absolutely a misnomer. But he said this guy was relentless working, and then every night he did a concert for the 1,500 people that he wanted to see the next day. It was just, can you believe that?
Yeah. But back to my point about I'm trying to differentiate you from other ways to make what you charge not seem so onerous. I mean, if you've got a book in you that either you want to write or you want somebody else to write, but your goal is to get that story out, right? Rather than just have one book to say, hey, kids, here's my life.
Right.
If it's something where it's like, hey, I think this is a story that's compelling. So not only do I want it published, but I need to know how to get it out into people's hands. That's where you come in addition to the other stuff, right?
Yeah, we did, as the one of, if not the best book marketing maven on the planet, I'm going to teach everybody that comes to us, here's all the things we can do, and here's all the things you can do that you can't even see that you can do. Like one of the books we're doing now is with Travis Steffens here, who's very well off, but he created Our Tiny House. He's taken all the homeless people, he tests all of them, and 60% of them have a really good mind, but nobody will let them work. So he hires them, says you make 120 to 160 a day, and they're building these little houses, and he's taken thousands of homeless people, veterans, prostitutes, drug users, and disciplining them with a new software. I said, Travis, man, you're a kid. He's only 42 years old, I think. Is it you got to write a book because we got to end homelessness. I can guarantee, I don't know you guys that well, but when you drive through LA or San Diego and you see those tent cities, and back in Newport Beach where I live, it breaks my heart. And this guy's curing the problem, and no one knows him. And I said, what a book is a book gives you mega credibility. A book gives you a platform. A book is the first thing that goes after your name and age when you die. It says, Harry died at age 82, but his book was blank. Well, in this case, it's book, Let's End Homelessness, which how no one even knows that exists. I mean, did you know that Travis existed before I told you?
No.
And his book will be out in a couple of months. So,
and how are people going to find out about that book?
Oh, we're going to help him. We're going to broadcast it. We'll do all the publicity, but on the internet, it's really easy because he's got something that nobody, there's a lot of people that have their heart to get rid of homelessness and sex trafficking and all that stuff goes together.
Well, it's really interesting.
60 degrees of it, and answer your question, Larry. There'll be no rock unturned that we won't try to make happen.
That's the key I was trying to get.
I'm sorry, I was
who may be listening is, they may think, wow, that's a lot of money, but it's like, well, no, wait, if they help me write it, they do an amazing cover, and they have a way to get people to find my book, maybe it's worth the money as opposed to just languishing on Amazon with nobody really doing anything for it. So that was
one more thing is that, Larry, you said you were part of a book writers group. Right. The other thing we've had to start, because so many people have books sitting in their file, right? They've come to us. We now do for $12,000. We edit it, improve it, and take it. And the next Og Mandino is now with us, the doctor out of Ohio named Lou Tartaglia. He's been my friend for 50 years. Phenomenal writer. Og Mandino, the guy who wrote The Greatest Salesman, sold 100 million copies of it. Was a good friend of mine, but a good friend of Lou's. And I got Lou once to Mother Teresa. Long story, which you probably don't have time for, but he's a guy you got to interview. Anyhow, he's written this story about the camel meeting Christ, which is nobody would publish his book. We take his book out of the warehouse for $12,000. We've edited it, made it perfect, and I think it's going to be the colossal Christmas book of our time. But there's a lot of those, and you say 12,000 is a lot. Well, it's a lot or a little. If it's sitting there not doing anything, it's useless to you and it's useless to the world. And I think we're going to open up the possibilities for a lot of people that didn't have possibilities open to them. I'm not for everybody, and I don't pretend to be, but I am for a lot of people that will help a lot of people. And I really want to do it. And I love books, and I'm an addicted reader and an addicted writer, positively addicted.
Well, this has been
In
great.
your spare time. Right?
I think we followed through with the basic concept of follow your dreams. You know, do what you feel is your destiny. Find your destiny, and then pursue it, no matter what. And you're the classic example of somebody who hit a wall and busted through and continues to bust through. So our audience hopefully is going to appreciate that and be inspired by it and learn from it. And we will have a link to the Mark Victor Hansen library.com that we're going to show. And of course, everybody knows your book, and you can find it on Amazon. Your books.
All the other books that are out right now. How many titles do you have? 300 and what?
318, but I'm still growing it. And we want everyone to go to askthebookclub.com also and join us, because Crystal and I promised to help teach you become a master asker, so you get your ask in gear. Askthebookclub.com.
Get your ask in gear.
Great. And because of our book club that we're starting on manopause.com, some of your writers may want to you may want to send some of their books over to us, and because we don't want bestsellers, because everybody's doing book clubs with reading bestsellers. We want the unusual, different book that nobody's read yet that we can promote.
Yeah.
Because
I promise you, I'll give you every one of them.
Great. Great. All right.
Well, Mark, thanks so much. This has been great.
This has been,
and I know we're going to do it again, because I think we have a lot to share with our audience of things that you're doing and promoting and recommending. So we really appreciate your time. We appreciate everything that you're doing, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me, Larry and Mike. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Take care.